From the heart of the land of the Guardians, where the dog pound roars, the Cavs soar, and heartbreak is just part of the game, this is 3 and Out, Cleveland Sports Talk. With Jason, Drew, and Michael, 3 diehard fans breaking down the highs, the lows, and everything in between. No fluff, no filters, just Cleveland sports the way it's meant to be. Now let's get into it. Here's your hosts, Michael, Jason, and Drew.
Swung out and blasted deep to right. Goal! Getting chased. He got hit, knocked down. Cleveland, this is for you. Down goes Anderson.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. We are 3 and Out. We are so glad that you chose to join us. Today we're going to discuss some of the Guardians, which is, yeah, exactly. And we're going to bust out some of the Browns schedule with you. We're going to talk some Cavs and off-season moves and things that we think that they need to do. But we thought we'd try out a new look today. So here we are coming at you from the new and improved, maybe improved. I don't know. Now you can see all of our faces up and close. And I don't know if that's the best thing or the worst thing, but yeah. Yeah, check out everybody's cool backdrops. You got Jason with some cool old school Browns. You got Drew with all kinds of stuff. And I've got flowers behind me. So that's pretty awesome. I'm really excited about the
very pretty.
Later, we're going to discuss the Cavs aprons, and I feel like I should be wearing an apron right now while I have this background. So that's always
you
awesome.
look cute in
So
one.
I don't know if they make them my size, to be honest with you, but we'll see. I
I'm
like
sure
to
they
eat
do.
things that come from being made from aprons, but I don't know if necessarily I enjoy wearing an apron, but we'll see.
You dig on the curtains.
Just custom built window, like 8-foot window. There you go.
Yeah.
Multi-purpose curtains.
Appreciate that. So, anyways, let's get started with some awesome, exciting talk. The Guardians. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
it's actually not exciting at all.
No, they're definitely on a little bit of a slide. Dropped to third in division, 5.5 games back, and struggling offensively, to say the least. So,
I mean, I love baseball as much as the next.
2 hitters.
All right, I was gonna say I love baseball as much as the next person, but it's slow. It's hard to watch, and this is really kind of hard to watch right now. Just no hitting.
Well, it's just inconsistent.
Yeah.
You know, you go
Yeah.
through a week where the pitching looks like it's getting somewhere. You know, holding team, starting pitching's going 6 innings. The bullpen's doing its job. You know, but the hitting is abysmal.
Yeah.
And so you're losing 3-1. Then the next week, you know, nobody can pitch. We're giving up 9 runs and we're winning 10-9.
Right.
right.
You know, all of a sudden the bats wake up. You know, if we could find some consistency, I think it would be, you know, then we'd at least have an identity.
Maybe the bats
Right.
and the pitching need to talk to each other and say, hey, today I'm not going to do very good, so I'm going to need you to hit some runs. And then, you know, vice versa. Today I'm going to pitch really good, so you don't need to hit as many. So, I don't know, maybe they can flip the script a little bit on each other, and maybe that's the thing.
Well,
they're not talking.
Scary thing is we're over halfway to the All-Star break, you know, and it'd be nice to go into the All-Star break, you know, somewhat on a roll, you know, close to that playoff contention. And, man, it just seems like there's just not a whole lot of
I agree.
like super positive stuff to hang on to. I mean, you know, Jose's starting to bat well. I think he's batting 296 right now going into tonight's game. You know, Stephen Kwan, he's dropped a little bit, but still over 300. He's our only guy over 300.
Mm-hmm.
And
300 is much more rare now than it was, you know, back when the Indians had their heyday.
yeah. Well, it just seems like the way that this team is designed, you know, to manufacture runs, you know, base running, playing, you know, smart baseball. It's really we're on the struggle bus right now. They're just it's not generating offense.
No, we've had timely hits, but you know that might be that guy's only hit for an entire series.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and so he ends up in the series, you know, 2 for 12.
Right. I was just some quick math. I think we're 71 runs behind Detroit. Like they've scored 71 more runs than us this year.
That's insane.
So far. I mean, if we extrapolate that out 4 more times.
That's a big word.
I was going to say extrapolate. I like it.
We're a highly educated. This podcast. Not only will you learn about sports and Cleveland sports, but we will also expand your vocabulary.
We'll teach you words. Actually,
extrapolate.
Jason is actually AI, and that was all Chat GPT, and they just threw that in there for him. But
Nice.
It's getting very advanced.
Yes. Yeah.
like, I feel like
so David Fry's some news too, right? Drew, what were you saying?
Yeah.
He's
So
coming-
David Fry is going to start rehab in AA in Akron this week, I believe.
My
I
goodness, that would be
see
great.
how long they expected rehab or that to go, and some of it may depend on how he does. I know we were talking. We hope he can rub off on Bazzano and not vice versa.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be bad.
Yeah.
But that'll be a nice, much needed addition when he finally gets up.
Of course, with our
Yeah, I
crowded
think
quarterback room we have going on right now, I don't know that anybody needs to be rubbing off on anybody there. So just need to
there's-
just
we
let
gotta
that
keep
ship
the rub-
sail. Just keep it moving.
keep it to a minimum in Cleveland. That's
Right.
for sure. Yeah.
Until we sign Justin.
So this Bazzano, it's kind of I got to imagine that when they drafted him first overall, that the expectations were for this kid to be up with the team at some point this year, right?
And I think that there was a clue there when they traded their second baseman, who was a
Yeah.
platinum glove second baseman, that they thought this kid would be here. I thought by now, like honestly,
Yeah.
when you draft him that high, he's supposed to be, I don't know, fielding wise, if I mean, he's known for his bat. That's really what he was. I think they were talking about that he could plug into someplace else if they needed him to, if the second base wasn't going to work out. But you traded away a platinum glove second baseman who, had the struggle bus on hitting too after drafting this kid number 1 overall. So I think that's the point where it's like, you're going to see him at some point. Not if you're hitting 230 in AA baseball, you're not. But
No.
Yeah.
Which I think
for sure.
that for them, drafting somebody who was a college kid, I think they expected him to be ready sooner. Now, how soon, they have their probably timeline, but, I don't know that this start is probably what they anticipated.
right.
That he might be moving along a little quicker than this. And he started off hot just like Manzardo did this year, and all of a sudden they both have kind of hit a wall. And
Yeah, they've cooled.
although Manzardo still leads us in home runs.
Yeah.
Is that saying
But it'd be
much,
nice to, this next, I don't know, at least couple weeks when we know Fry is going to be in Akron. It'd be nice to head up to Akron and catch a
cheap game? Yeah.
and see Bazzano firsthand and see Fry rehabbing. Maybe get
Do a live show from there.
What was that movie, Trouble with the Curve? We go up there and we can see if we can hear it. Hear the
Yeah.
pitch, hear the hit.
Yeah,
Can't
that's
hear the
right.
curve. Maybe that's his problem.
No, that would be
Have
John
Clint
Kenzie.
Eastwood coach him.
Right. Yeah, you can hear it. You can hear it when he hits.
But he can't hit the curve.
Yeah, I was just
No,
going to say
Joe
there
Boo.
just hasn't been a whole lot of that happening. That's
No, but think
whole
about our right field. Nolan Jones is 181. John Kenzie is 150. And Jonathan Rodriguez and Will Brennan haven't got a hit yet this year.
That's perfect.
That's our right field.
I like it. It's a good plateau.
I mean, combined, they barely have Stephen Kwan's batting
That's not
average
good.
That's
combined.
crazy.
All four of them
And
combined.
you're talking about some of those guys probably only have about 4 or 5 at bats probably recorded all season.
Well, yeah, Rodriguez only has 5 and Will Brennan has 9, but they're
That's what I'm
0 for
saying.
14
So-
combined.
So 2 hits out of
Where's that one kid playing that's actually batting?
Oh,
like
Angel
290s.
Martinez?
center
Yeah.
field usually.
Yeah, center.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's been playing well. And I mean, I
Yeah.
remember last year he kind of came up and showed promise.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that wasn't maybe a flash in the pan, that
He
might
also
be
can play
legitimate.
second base if you need a second baseman that bad, but
Yeah, I was
But
gonna say,
Arias hasn't been that bad.
I like him in center.
yeah.
I don't think Arias has been that bad.
No,
Mm-mm.
not at all.
I've been okay with him being there, which maybe buys a little time for Bazzano to figure it out.
I hope so.
Yeah.
The
There's
only
just
thing I
a
can
lot
say
of
that,
guys batting sub 200. It's just a
oh,
lot.
it's ridiculous.
a
Well,
lot of
not
guys
just sub
batting sub
200, sub 2 1/4.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not a baseball batting guru, but if you look at OPS, which is it's kind of like compare it to the PER for basketball. Sub 700 is like anything in the sixes and below is considered really bad. And we
Yeah.
have Bo Naylor, Carlos Santana, Austin Hedges, Nolan Jones, Will Wilson, Brian Rocchio, John Kenzie Noel, Lane Thomas, Will Brennan, and Jonathan Rodriguez, all at under 700.
Yeah.
First of all, anytime you're put in a group batting wise with Austin Hedges,
Yeah,
it's not a good group.
No.
I was going to say our
he's
catchers,
at the top
Not
of that.
the
our
group you
catchers
want to
are
be with.
terrible.
He's at the top half of that. Of those
Yes.
names I just listed, he's third
That's
behind
Yeah.
Bo Naylor and
That's
Carlos
terrible.
Santana.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody else I named is behind him in OPS.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's just, the batting has been, like I said, timely, which I think is why we have wins, but not a run differential.
Right.
We've had good
Yeah.
timely hitting, but we haven't had anything even bordering consistent outside of Ramirez and Kwan.
Yeah.
That's
And
crazy.
if you look just, we don't have to go through it all, but when you look at like Detroit's batting stats and the OPS, it's like the starters are all over 700.
Yeah.
800,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a significant difference. And
Well,
there's a lot of, very few guys sub 200, and a lot of guys over 300. So it's
Think about this. When you think about the lineup and maybe expectation, because we talked about this with the Cavs and the role players.
yeah.
Outside of Ramirez and Kwan, I can name probably one guy who has achieved or exceeded expectations coming into the season. That's Angel Martinez.
Yeah.
I don't even think anybody thought he'd
Everybody
be up
else has
here yet.
been below expectation.
Yeah.
Nobody came in, and you're like, man, that guy put in a good off season. You're like, nope. That
No,
guy's
all the
not good.
focus was on the young second baseman. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I just think like last year, again, our MO or the keys to our wins, we were run manufacturers. We won games, we didn't outslug people. We weren't going to get into a home run derby with somebody.
Right.
And when you're not manufacturing those runs, when the base run, you're not getting base runners, you're not able to manufacture runs and get those timely hits. It could make for a long rest of the season,
Right.
and they really didn't make any huge change. They, obviously the first round draft pick was a huge plus, but with him struggling in the minors,
right.
and we really didn't make any huge off-season additions. We didn't,
No, mostly we made subtractions.
Right. I mean, the Tyler
Traded away
Freeman
our second baseman, traded away Josh Naylor.
and Tyler Freeman. Tyler Freeman
Yeah.
was a good spark plug. I mean, he wasn't you wouldn't call him necessarily an everyday player, but I mean, he played pretty much every day at a different position. But he added some spunk. But we traded him for Nolan Jones, who's a $180 right now.
right.
Who played well when he wasn't with us, and now he's back and playing bad again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he was with
I'd say the
Colorado.
one-
And this is the second or third time now that we've taken somebody that had a really high batting average and was playing really well from Colorado and brought him into us. And it was like
Nope.
a joke, it's something about the National League doesn't always translate well into the American League.
Well, Colorado's always been a hitter's park.
Right. And so that's his home ballpark. I was going to say the same thing about that. It's not the same. You can't bring him here and expect the same.
Can we just shelf him until we play Colorado in Colorado?
Right.
would that
There
be-
you go.
Those 2 games a year.
We got you.
Hey, on a bright note, one of the
There's a
things that
bright
we
note.
talked about earlier. Well, I'm looking for something.
Okay.
Early on we were talking about Clase and maybe he needs reassigned something, but he's only given up 1 earned run in his last 9 outings.
Oh,
That's
So
better.
he's actually been pitching pretty well.
Good.
And, he's got in that same time period, he's got, because he's not a huge strikeout guy, but in those 9 appearances, he's got 12 strikeouts.
Well, that's really good.
So, he's
He's
been pitching a lot
really nice. He's
better.
more of a ground ball pop up kind of guy.
Yeah.
You're either popping him up or grounding
So-
out.
So that's at least a bright spot. Is he might be finding his rhythm again, hopefully.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I mean, there are some
That's a
bright
plus.
spots certainly on the pitching side, that's for sure. But man, it's
It's more fun
if
when
I'm
they're
being
hitting the ball.
completely honest, yeah, it's tough to watch because the offense is just anemic.
Anemic.
You know, it's
Hey.
yeah,
Jinx.
another
That's never mind. You can go
another
ahead and
big
talk.
word. It's all good, man. Did I freeze? Did you steal my
No,
words?
I jinxed you.
Did I hear somebody's handing out candy bars?
I like candy.
Nice.
So you guys think it's anything to do with the managerial wise, or is it just these guys need to wake up?
No, I think it's. I know this is going to sound harsh, but I think it's the talent level.
Yeah.
You are, back in the '90s when we had the stud team, they wouldn't pay guys. Albert
Right.
Bell walked for a couple mil a year. We've never ever been a franchise that paid guys when it was time to pay
They're
guys.
constantly a farm
And so-
system.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're just
You're
just a
constantly
farm
the team with
system and-
potential, and then when that potential
Mhm.
shows up, you either need to win it that year,
Yeah.
or everybody's gone the following year.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
unless
a
you have
failure.
a manager like Francone who can do more
Who's-
with
Who's
less.
struggling right now, by the way.
Well, he just swept us.
Well, that doesn't count.
That's not. Jeez.
I could put together a
Yeah.
team right now and go sweep the Guardians. Just pitch.
Well, yeah, it's
Just
you
throw
know,
it
but
over the
we-
plate.
Right.
Again, even with Francone, we did more with less. We
Right.
were making the playoffs, making runs, but
Well,
it's-
but we still did with Vogt last year. I mean,
That's what I was saying. It's last
You
year
know,
he seemed to get a spark out of this club, but it just seems there's no spark going on, right now
do
at
we
all.
know? Hold on, let's just real quick. You guys talk. I just wonder what our
Anyway.
record was at this point last year.
well, we
I
were.
don't know. That's too much math
I mean,
for me.
We were off to a
We-
great start last year.
Well, but we did, but then we hit a wall, and then finished strong. So, just looking.
yeah.
So
yeah,
first half of
something
the year. So at one point, what are we at? How many games right now?
46, 47.
I know there's 100.
So after 46, what are we? 20 what and 25 and 21?
Yeah.
4 games difference. 29 and
So-
17 last year.
Okay.
All right, well,
So-
go Guards.
So
Yeah.
it's not. But again, last year was a little more exciting because little better batting. You had Class A was dominant all year. You didn't have the up and down on both sides of the ball.
Well, and maybe the spark we need, are a couple of those veterans coming back.
David
with
Fry's a
Fry
humongous
and-
spark plug. I mean, that guy literally
Mhm.
has carried that team on his back for a lot of the year last year. So
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah.
you're exactly
And,
right.
and while our starting pitching hasn't been, god awful, but Bieber would be a
Beaver
nice,
would be. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's a good leader.
That'd be nice to have.
That's-
yeah. So that could be,
Guy you
the
could-
sooner we get those guys back, maybe it'll all work out. That later before the All-Star break, both those guys.
We're
make it
definitely a
back
second
up
half
and-
team. It's just hopefully you don't dig yourself into too big of a hole that you can't recover the second half.
Right.
That's
Right. Well, that's like I said, Detroit seems to be a team that can,
right.
they generate offense, and you don't want to be 10, 12, 15 games back,
No,
heading into the All-Star.
no, especially if
I
they're
mean,
getting
No,
we
but
could-
but I think if Bieber can get back to Bieber and everybody else slide down, at that point, don't you just need to make the playoffs?
I hope.
It doesn't matter what position, just get there and maybe
Right.
your pitching can carry you.
I
Yeah.
hope.
I mean, a wild card in baseball, isn't that just a one-game play-in? Or am I thinking wrong?
I
was
don't
thinking
know.
it
I
was-
don't.
I don't remember.
So that's nothing. That
That's
doesn't
it, but I
excite
don't
me.
know.
We're not called 3 and 2, like as in the batting count. We're called 3 and out because we're
Yeah,
mainly Browns
yeah,
and Cavs.
yeah.
'Cause there's 162
62
games.
games.
It's a lot of freaking games to
Yeah,
try and watch every
so-
single one of them. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to be super into them and super diehard, but it's gotten so hard over the years to just
Got back into
Chugging
it a
along the
while
series.
ago, but it took a long time to get over when they broke up the team from the 90s.
right.
That hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was never the same. I mean,
Yeah.
they put some good teams together since then, but it's the same. It's a revolving door,
But that team was different. We had all hitting and
right?
a little bit of pitching, but not much.
Yeah. We developed the team, and then we, as soon as they get all-star
Mhm.
level and their contracts come due, we tend to
Move
Farmed them
on.
out.
Yeah. Now I will say we're playing Minnesota right now, which is this is a big series, but right after that we play a 4-game series in Detroit. So that
That
we
could get
may
ugly,
need
or
to
that
pay
could be
attention to
awesome.
that.
Although
Yeah,
we're
the
losing
Thursday through
2-1 right
Sunday,
now.
so.
2-1, top of the fourth. Manzardo's up to bat.
Home run.
Nice.
He does have an
Home run
RBI.
from-
He's got the one RBI. So
This is home run inning.
Yeah.
nobody's on base though. He looks like he's leading off. So
This could be a tough stretch, man. I mean, Minnesota, Detroit, then the Dodgers. I mean,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
That's
and
in
then
LA
we play
too,
the-
isn't it?
no, it's home, and then the Angels at home, and then the Yankees. So it's bam, this next
Oh, it's at Detroit.
12 or
That's what it was.
15.
Yeah,
at
Yeah.
Detroit.
and then New York. In New York.
Yeah. So
That's a lot
anyway,
of
it could be
a lot
some good baseball here to come up.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
like-
we'll find out a lot about the team though.
Yeah.
During this stretch, you're going to find out.
Yeah.
Guys are going to have to step up, or you're going to go through maybe a really, really rough stretch.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep. A faux show.
could get ugly before it gets prettier, or it could just get ugly and stay ugly.
I was going to say,
That's
Hmm.
That's
Speaking
definitely-
of ugly,
you get if it gets ugly, do you have a fire sale?
what's there to sell. Beaver,
yeah, fire sale.
Beaver. There
Who
you
wants
go.
Nolan Jones? Nolan
Right.
Jones,
We'll
highest
give you-
bidder. Who wants him?
I mean, even Quan. I mean, that's that guy would
Well,
look
Quan would be the one I'm worried about because he's got a contract coming up.
right, and he's not getting paid hardly anything right now, and he's
Nope.
a stud.
And he'll
Yeah.
get good money. So
Speaking of
Not
good
from us.
money, let's shift our focus here. Let's talk Browns. I can't do this anymore.
Somebody
Yeah.
just got paid.
Yeah, Shador Sanders
Somebody-
just got a nice healthy chunk of money for a nice
4
fifth
years.
round draft pick.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I would take every dime of what he just got, but the difference of
4 years
falling
yeah.
into the fifth round from the first round. So
Yeah.
cost him
nice.
$42 million.
right. Nice contract. So that's a great thing going into the off season
No.
here now. Now the rookie mini camps are over. He'll be able to participate. We'll get to see him going against other veterans and, hoping that he keeps treading down the same line he is and proving that, he deserves to be,
Yeah.
a legit
Yeah, for
contender
sure.
to be the starter on this team. Not necessarily. I mean, we're all on the same page with this. If those rookies don't have to play a down this regular season, that's a good thing because
good
it means
thing.
your veterans are coming in, they're winning games, and they get to sit
Mhm.
back and learn. And nothing, I wouldn't say nothing good. I mean, we've had people like Jaden Daniels that came out and really marched and stuff, but it's really beneficial for these
It's
guys
rare.
to sit and learn.
Yeah.
Well,
and-
especially again, this isn't a shot at either Dylan Gabriel or Shador, but the third, fourth, fifth round draft picks, it's a consensus league wide that those guys are not field ready. It's not
Right.
a shot at those guys. There's just obviously work that needs to be done, and I think all of our hopes are that we come out of 2025, where we get to watch some good, solid football, and we
Yeah.
come out knowing what the path forward is. If it's none of the above, again, I don't feel like I have a dog in this fight. I've said this before. I felt different when we drafted Baker first overall, that he was my guy. And if none of these four guys pan out, we have 2 first-round draft picks next year,
But-
and I feel like we can make, if there's a quality guy to go after. We have the capital to go after it. But if one of these guys turns into the guy, then we have 2 first-round picks to surround this guy with,
Mason
defensive
Graham
linemen.
type of, I was gonna say
2 defensive linemen who can puke
Right.
in minicamp. I mean, it's high quality stuff. Did you see on the Shedeur Sanders where he was jokingly denied Cam Ward to trade jerseys?
No,
I didn't
Because
see that.
it was a joke. He's like he told Karen, no, bro, I got to make some money. I
That's
got to make some
hilarious.
money off of this jersey before I could,
that's
you're
funny.
basically. But it was all in jest.
But here's a question for you though. If you're going into the draft next year and you're wondering, do I need to draft a quarterback? Don't you have to play the 2 you just drafted this year to
Well,
see what you
that-
have?
Well, that's the problem, I think.
Because
Yeah.
if they don't play, you won't know what you have.
But that's
This practice
saying.
shows you something, but it doesn't show you what you need to see.
I think that's the problem where he's saying those that if
It's a
they have
quandary.
to end up playing, that means your team sucked pretty bad to begin with. That we had to put these guys in there and play, and if they aren't able to cut it and make it, then
No, but I'm
we're
saying
in a really
it-
bad.
I mean, unless Kenny Pickett gets a chance and blows the doors off things, even if you go 11-6 and make the playoffs, it won't happen. But say you do, but you get 17 games out of Joe Flacco. He's not your long-term solution,
Right.
so you go into the draft not knowing
Not
what
knowing,
you have in
yeah.
Pickett in Shedeur or in
Right.
Dylan Gabriel because none of them played.
Yeah.
So I'm actually fighting myself right now. Do you have to play those guys to see what you have?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think we'll learn a lot as camp and the preseason progresses. Again, I don't think we're going to go into the regular season with 4 quarterbacks on the roster. I mean,
I don't either.
No.
or,
I agree.
or literally maybe 5 quarterbacks technically on the roster if you include Massage Boy.
No, he'll get on they bought that insurance policy on him. If I'm not
physically
mistaken.
unable to perform.
Yeah. So he'll get on there and
But
um,
so I think it's going to be one of the, veterans. And again, I love Joe Flacco. I love what he did 2 years ago.
He's
I
2
wanted
years
him
older.
back last year. Yeah, he's 2 years older. We know he's not the long-term solution. And I think, as much as it hurts me to say, as probably one of the 2 biggest optimists in our 3-man group here, the expectations for this year are not
I would not be the other.
off the charts. So if it came down to it and Flacco gets waived or nobody's going to trade for Joe Flacco. If Kenny Pickett's the guy,
Right.
Joe Flacco's getting cut. That's just the bottom line. Both these draft picks played well enough in minicamp and showed enough promise in minicamp that they're going to have to see what they got in those guys. We know what the other 2 roundabout have. We know what Flacco's going to do. He can run the offense. I think he'd be a good mentor, even though that's not his job. His job would be to be the starting quarterback. And Kenny Pickett's here to earn a spot on the roster. He
Kenny
lays a
Pickett's
goose egg
here
in camp.
because we traded a 5th round pick and our other backup for him. He's not
Yeah.
here by choice.
No, but I'm saying
Well, we chose
his
is what he's saying.
the pressure's on him.
Well,
to
we
earn
chose
a
him because
spot
we
on the
had
roster.
nobody at the time.
Right.
So he was
Literally-
he was the
literally
only-
nobody.
literally nobody. So
Literally no.
yeah, he was the only option, somebody we could
Right.
get on the cheap that they saw. Joe Flacco chose to come here, which to me means there had to be some conversation about Joe, the job's yours to lose, or why else would he come? Because he said numerous times he's not coming to be a backup.
Well, and
Right.
even Stefanski came out and he said too. He said, Joe's not been brought in here to be a mentor. Like we brought Joe in to be a quarterback,
Yeah.
not a mentor.
No,
So
I'm
I
sure
think
they
that's-
won a quarterback battle.
That's
Like,
what they got
I believe
coaches.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah, and
what
I
I'm
think
saying though.
that's-
That was the expectation with Joe was that you're being brought in to compete for the starting job. We're not bringing you in because we need an old guy in the room to help mentor young guys. we want you to bring what you bring to the table
Yes.
as a quarterback for this team.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Jay. If Kenny Pickett wins it, I don't know why you need Joe sitting on the bench, because
No.
if Kenny wins it, that's the scenario I believe the Browns actually want is, for him to win it, from whatever we hear. Mary Kay even put, out her little depth chart, the unofficial depth chart, but it has Kenny Pickett listed as the number one quarterback. So, I mean, if it comes down to that, what do you need him for? Because now you're one click away from getting to see what one of these rookies can do, barring an injury or just downright bad play or maybe some crazy package or something, they worked up before too with quarterbacks that they throw one of them in there, but I don't know. It's
well, and I think again, I know we're going to talk about the schedule, but I think, the first 8 games, 9 games, whatever it is, I don't remember what our bye week is. I think it's 9
8
or 10.
It's 8.
So
It's week 9.
those.
Which we
Okay,
have
so the first 8 games,
yes.
8
yeah,
games,
the first 8
Sorry, I'm
games
not
are going to
like
be
super
key.
proper with my numbers.
Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco come in and we go into the bye week, 5-3, 6-2, which again, I know I'm
4-4.
pie in the sky,
What?
that's then I don't see a change happening, but we go in 2-6, 1-7, there's no reason to not see what we have in one of those other guys or both those guys.
Give them the second half of the season, see what happens.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? You don't make the playoffs.
But
Right,
let me throw you another. The whole Kenny Pickett thing. I'm a little torn because he's 26.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
He's literally
If he-
the same age as Tyler Shook.
Tyler Shough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if he wins the starting job, why do you need 2 rookies on your roster?
I think that's to figure out who.
So wouldn't one of them
becomes
be
your
the
guy.
odd man out?
I would think that they would keep them to see what they have because you can always replace one of them with a veteran next year if you need to. Like just
Yeah.
throw on the roster, but you need to find out which one's going to be the guy that replaces
But if
Kenny
you have-
someday.
But how are you going to
Yeah.
know that unless they play?
Well, that's what I'm saying. They would. One of them would
Well,
have
then
to.
Kenny Pickett's not your guy.
Well, then that's why you keep
Oh,
him.
you again. I think the first half of the season dictates, if Kenny or Joe, whoever's the veteran that starts the season.
So you think
You
okay?
know-
So and I'm just on getting your perspective. So say
Sure.
Kenny Pickett wins the job and we go 1-7. You don't
Yeah.
think they would then turn to Joe Flacco? You think they would just punt the season at that point?
100%. Yeah.
Do you think Pickett would have a quicker yank than a 1-7 start before they'd at least see if Flacco could do
potentially.
something?
I would say he has a
potentially.
leash as short as 1-4, to be honest with you.
Okay, all right. I'm just curious where you guys were at.
Well,
So-
the only argument there, Michael, is when you look at those first 5 games, it's like the Blitzkrieg, man.
Oh, it's awful.
It's a gauntlet that first 5 games.
Hey,
I
we're
could
not-
literally
we're
see
not
us going
here.
0-5.
We're not here to make excuses. We're here to win football games. If you can't do it with your tiny hands, with your tiny hands and you're somewhat of a mullet,
Well,
Wait a minute, I got to get further away from the camera. Look at these tiny hands.
did you see the
if
picture
we're-
where they threw up Joe Flacco
God,
holding
they
the
do
football?
look small here.
Joe Flacco holding the football in his hand, like wraps all the way around the ball, and then there's Kenny Pickett, and you can like see every letter of the NFL that's on that side of the football.
Yeah.
If
gloves
we're
on
really
both
trying to
hands,
win, though, wouldn't Flacco be your guy?
I would think so, but I mean, we're not paid to make those decisions. Even though I think we
Yeah.
could probably make them better for the salaries that we have.
That's true.
I mean,
But
Well, again,
If it's
I
me-
believe. Go ahead, Michael. I think
I
you
was
and I are agreeing.
I was just gonna say, if it's me and I'm running the show, I brought in Flacco to be my starter. There's no quarterback battle. I know what I get with him, unless he just comes and craps the bed.
which is possible. That is
because
possible.
he's
At
2
his
years
age,
older
you
than what he
never
was
know.
last time he was here, and he didn't look bad at all. I didn't think. I mean, he didn't look like age was catching up to him. He never was a fast guy. He never was a very athletic guy. He was always kind of a, could roll out and throw the ball, but he had a freaking arm, that could launch that ball all the way down the field. So for me, Kenny's the guy, or not Kenny, Joe's the guy coming in. It's up to Kenny to earn the spot on this roster because I want to see what I got on my rookies, and somewhere I'm going to have to see them, whether it's preseason or, whatnot. But yeah, I'm not paid to make that
Yeah.
decision though.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, the fan pressure, I know we touched on this a few episodes ago, and it was me that said it. I think the media is really pushing for Shedeur. So, it'll be interesting to see how short the leash is on a veteran,
Mhm.
or again, if Shedeur Sanders is our quarterback of the future, if we come out of 2025 and we identify that he's our guy, and we can build talent around him with 2 first-round draft picks next year, there isn't anybody in the Cleveland fan base that'd be more happy than I am. Or
Right.
if it's Dylan Gabriel,
Right.
and that ends up winning that position, and the same scenario happens, nobody's going to be happier. Or Kenny Pickett even.
So
I don't care who it is. I just don't want the media pressure to make that move too
I don't even
premature.
think it's the media that I'm a little worried about. I think it's the Jimmy Haslam that I'm kind of worried about stepping in and saying, get this kid on the field type of thing. Kind of like what they did with Johnny Manziel. Remember
he was
when they
really
had
his guy, that I could see that happening.
That's what I think is the case here. I mean, it was the same way with Johnny Manziel. Brian Hoyer, he was having a solid season, and all of a sudden they were like, we got to get Johnny Money Manziel in there and get him in there to, bring the pizzazz to this team, even though we were solidly winning, games. I mean, we weren't blowing teams out. I liked Hoyer, and so I'm a little nervous that we're going to come in here and we're going to have a guy like Joe Flacco who's old and he's systematically winning games, but it's not exciting wins. We're winning games. We're winning games.
You say not exciting wins?
No, I'm saying I'm afraid that's what could happen. I'm not saying that he wasn't excited. I'm just saying what if he comes in here and it's just little check down passes and it's this, that, the other, but we're still winning games. Does Jimmy Haslam come in and say, we need that flash, we need that pizzazz, get Shedeur?
But what part of the Joe Flacco you've seen is a check down game?
No, I didn't say that. I'm saying
I thought you were saying okay.
No, I'm saying
well,
I
don't see that. I guess I don't see that.
I guess where I'm at with it is like somewhere along the line, this guy's got to show age. Does it affect his arm throwing? I mean, what if he comes out, he wins the job, the smart guy's behind the quarterback, he's played for years, and now all of a sudden he doesn't have that accuracy that he had 2 years ago, and we're starting to see that wear and tear, and we're winning games because he's making nice system throws and he's running.
Except the team Olajuwon at like 60 still has his post move footwork, and he's teaching youngsters. So some things you'd never lose.
It's just a scenario.
I could see that happening, to a certain extent. The only way I'm going to disagree is the fact that if we're winning games, I think that's the bottom line. What drives ownership is butts in the seat.
We were winning games with Hoyer. And he pulled the trigger and said, I need Manziel in there, and the whole tank.
Well, I think the difference there is Johnny Manziel was a first-round pick.
Right.
I think that was the only difference there is where we picked Manziel versus the
I'm just looking at it from the same scenario of the Flash. That's what Johnny was. That's what Shedeur was. I mean, we talked about this the other day. We're watching national media coverage of the people talking about Brown's rookie camp because Shedeur's there, and I love that. It's cool sect that,
we're getting recognition,
we're getting, poll and stuff, but makes me nervous with Jimmy.
And he's that's very valid because but the only thing I feel like is at least of late, barring unless the Shedeur pick was a him pick, he hasn't seemed to have meddled as much as he did back then.
Yeah,
earlier on,
kind of like Dan Gilbert. He's learning to be more of an owner and not a meddler to some extent.
Have some things bite you right in the butt, and like we said too, if that was his pick, that wasn't a bad thing for the owner to come in and say, "Hey, in the 5th round, I want that guy." If you had said you're taking him in number 2 overall, then I'm a little
that's different.
Upset because I don't feel like that's what you pay the guys to do. But he's the owner, whatever.
So I'm looking at our offense from Flacco 1.0.
Mm-hmm.
Top running back, Jerome Ford. Are we better?
Yes. Allegedly.
I think so. I mean, we don't know. We've got two rookies, both got to prove himself. But right now, the guy who was our lead back would potentially be our third.
Right.
Right.
Receiving, we still have David Njoku.
Yep.
Amari Cooper versus Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I like Jerry.
Yeah. I mean, Amari
Just-
back then,
Yeah,
he
that's why
he didn't really perform last year.
No,
so
but that's a tough call because it was when you saw the one guy who plays a little bit like Flacco, Jameis,
Right.
Mhm.
He was getting Judy huge numbers.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened with Flacco. He came in and he
He's-
found ways to get Amari the ball.
Yeah.
So I won't say it's a wash. I think the Amari of that year might be, although his yardage that year I think was less than what Judy had this year, or right around the same.
And
So-
yeah, I think too.
So
man,
it's almost a
Flacco's-
wash.
Flacco's way more accurate than
Yeah.
Winston
So-
too.
Right. So it may be a wash. Now, you still had Cedric Tillman. You still have him.
Mhm.
Yep.
But the one guy, and I'm always going to
your
advocate
guy,
for him,
your guy.
Harold Fannin Jr.
Mm-hmm.
That's a guy
thought
that's
about him
coming
today.
out there that may transform this offense with his ability to be all kinds of different types of weapons.
Right.
At Bowling
But
Green, he's doing
find
jet
those
sweeps. And,
mismatches.
yeah.
Those mismatches could be huge.
You know,
A guy like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
matching
so
up against the linebacker
it's-
when he looks like he should be going up against the DB. I mean, that's
Yeah.
But then
Yeah, he
again,
could create
Deontay
messes.
Johnson, is he better than Elijah Moore? Not in the head, but just as a talent.
I think he's more
Probably.
athletic. I mean, if he can catch the ball,
Yeah.
I think he gets open
so-
more. I mean, here's the
Yeah.
thing: does he drop more balls? Yeah, but has he got more passes being thrown to him? Yes, because he gets
He's
open.
got the ability to
He's-
get separation, yes.
He's a better overall
So-
route running receiver than Elijah was. For
So
sure.
as down as I've been on our offense when I'm actually looking at it,
And to
I
start the
think we're
season,
going into this year with more weapons than Joe Flacco had before.
Yeah.
100%. But also, he's going in with at least at this point, a healthy offensive line. Where he came
Who's our
in
left
when
tackle?
DeJuan
doesn't matter.
Jones.
We got two guys over 6'10", 6'9".
Um,
We built two picket
but-
fences on either side.
but
So you're
his,
saying Kenny's going
offensive
to be the
line-
starter?
Right.
I mean, his left tackle. I think
The
Flacco's
Kenny
left tackle
Pickett
was Hudson.
line. I think you're right, actually, because I think we were all banged up by the time he got put in.
Yeah.
No, we
yeah.
were banged up.
But
I mean,
he was one of
Conklin
those guys we
was
talked
definitely
about. The ball gets out of his hand faster, so that makes your offensive line better right up off the bat. When a guy
Yeah.
comes out, he knows where he's going to throw it. He's good to go.
Sorry,
Plus,
I
having a legitimate running game, which he didn't have.
might have
Jerome
too.
Ford had flashes.
Yeah.
He'd have a
Flash.
legitimate running game.
He had flash, like one run a year. He had flash.
Again,
It was kind of like
I don't want.
Deshaun Watson
I'm
in
not
those massage
optimistic about
parlors.
this year, but you're correct. You're
One-
correct.
Yeah.
One Deshaun's
So-
one
so- but
flashy
hold on.
year in the
Can-
massage parlors.
Can we go back to that though? Did we just name our offensive line if Kenny's our starter?
The picket fence.
You heard it here at
Offense.
3 and Out Cleveland Sports Talk.
The picket
Now-
fence.
Now I'm rooting for him.
Can we say TM or what do you do to patent that?
Yeah, we got to do
picket
trademark
fence.
on the picket fence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be a great, those posters
two-
that they do
Our
for
two
the,
fence posts.
Yeah.
picture of Kenny Pickett and the
Pulling the Wilson from Home Improvement.
yes.
Little top hat.
There you go. And each one of the boards is named,
is one of the
Conklin.
players.
Yeah, Conklin.
Bruh.
Yeah, there you go.
Kenny needs to be our starter.
We need to get an AI thing to work up that graphic.
Yeah.
for us.
It's written in the wood.
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Ain't nobody gonna rub that one out either.
You will stain your own fence.
That's terrible.
Well,
What just happened?
I think
That's terrible.
the schedule game. I feel we wouldn't be a proper podcasting sports coverage with the name 3 and Out that is basically Browns related if we didn't do some type of a schedule game with the schedule release being done. I think it's difficult having 4+1 quarterbacks in our room that we don't know even who the starter is going to be. We could all, I mean, I'm not saying this will happen, but doggone, Dylan Gabriel could come out and be our starter week 1. We just don't know what's going to happen.
We're going with the best information we have
we're
at the
Browns
right
fans,
now.
and we're not Browns fans that just started rooting for the Browns a few years ago. We've been rooting for them since we were children, so we've seen crazier things. So it's hard to say. It's hard to predict who's going to win what based off of who our quarterback will actually be. But I think we should at least give it a once over and pretend like one of the guys, either Kenny or Joe. And I guess this is how you got to look at it too. If Kenny beats out Joe for the starting job, then you have to assume, because they saw something in Joe to bring Joe in originally the first time around and to start him. So you have to probably assume that if Kenny is our day one starter, that he's going to be at the level that we last saw Joe at least, somewhere in that ballpark. That's where I'm kind of at with the whole thing, but I digress.
Yeah, just one quick thing too. We've had more since 1999. We've probably had more seasons at this point in Browns talk.
Yeah.
So May, where we haven't known who the starting quarterback is going to be at this point.
We lost Michael.
The years when we had Tim Couch and Baker.
I had to flip my steak.
And, there's a few years where we knew who the quarterback was going in to the preseason. This year is more typical for us as Browns fans, because we just don't know who's going to win the job. So, and again, although I'm not super confident in the coaching staff at this point, I want to be, but I'm not super confident. I have to trust that if Kenny Pickett wins, or if one of the, heaven forbid, one of these rookies is the starting quarterback day one, that they're making the best call, so that we have some exciting long-term football. What we all want is to be going into December playing meaningful football. We haven't had a whole lot of seasons where that's happened,
right?
And as a season ticket holder, I want to host a playoff game before I die, and so that hasn't happened, I think, since the 80s, where we've won the division and hosted a playoff game. So,
89, I
I
believe.
don't disagree with that.
So here's, as we do the schedule game, the way I'm looking at it, and if you guys feel differently, is we know what a Browns offense can look like under Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Theoretically, if anybody beats him out, then they should be better.
Yeah. At least I would say at least
I'm looking at it
level.
as Flacco kind of being where I'm starting at.
Yeah, our grade.
Okay.
Because it's
So you're saying basically when you look at the schedule, if Flacco was our day one starter, if somebody were to beat him out before that, map it as if it were the same quality of starter, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if we don't like Kenny Two Small Hands Pickett.
No, but he has a great offensive line.
And a better offensive coordinator, apparently.
AKA the picket fence.
The picket fence.
Right.
I'm kind of rooting for him now.
Oh, Canada.
Huh?
Matt Canada was his old
Matt
offensive
Canada.
coordinator.
We maybe we bring him in too, just for good measure.
Why not? We got Deontay Johnson.
We're getting the band back together.
Pittsburgh Browns.
The picket fences.
We got the Baltimore Browns.
Why don't you give us our first four, and we'll do a
first game Sunday,
First four
September
games?
7th. Well, we got to do one at a time.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there.
Oh,
Cincinnati at home. Now, again, Cincinnati's defense was bad, but their offense was stellar.
I think we win that one.
I agree. That's a W for me.
All right. I think they lose, but we're going to go majority rules. So
The Bengals start off slow every year. This is like probably the most winnable game on our schedule. Now, you want to play them the 9th week coming out of our bye week or whatever that would be, week 10. That'd be a whole different Bengals. But I think it's if you got a chance to beat the Bengals, we're notorious for laying an egg though on those home openers and stuff too. So I mean, I just think if you had a chance to win a home opener, this would be the one because the Bengals it takes
Their
them a
defense
minute to
didn't-
figure it out.
Their defense stunk last year, and it did not get any better.
No, it might have got worse. Trey Hendricks.
Yeah.
That's his name, right?
He's holding out.
Yeah, and
Once
he's still not on the team. So I mean, you lost that guy. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
huge blow to a defense that was already struggling.
16, 17 sacks or something
Yeah.
crazy like that.
All right, 1 win.
Week 2 at Baltimore.
Loss.
I don't think it's just a loss. I think it's a loss, all caps.
I think if we get the momentum coming out of week 1, is anybody keeping track of our win loss? I just thought about that. So we have a marker. Okay. Drew's got to post it up.
Before the math gets hard, Michael.
Right.
We're one game.
Do
one
you
game
want my
in.
head to explode?
We're 2 games in.
I
Two games
can't
in.
keep up.
Who's keeping track?
I think if you go into Baltimore, or if Baltimore comes in and we beat them week 1, and we go into not Baltimore, Cincinnati,
Cincinnati.
and we go against Baltimore week 2 with a win, I think it's a better game. But I still think that Baltimore just has the ability to play a complete game, and I don't know that we're that team yet. So
the only way I think that the Baltimore game we even have a chance is if Derrick Henry finally hits the cliff.
right, and he's
And so they have no running game. But I don't see that happening, but I think that's the
No
No,
running
right.
game outside of Lamar, you mean?
right.
right.
Right. But we got Schwessinger. That'd be
Well,
fun.
again,
Don't
our
forget about Mason
defense. Our defense
Who?
is
Mason Graham.
there's some
Who's
question
that?
there's question marks all over our defense. So hopefully we get some answers. On
There
that.
are, but it's also largely the defense we had last year. I mean, the 2 pieces are Mason Graham and the linebacker. Those are the only 2
Right.
new pieces. Everybody else would be the same.
We got another linebacker.
I guess
Jerome Baker.
Juan Thornhill's gone.
and Jerome Baker.
Yeah, we picked up 2 free agent safeties.
Yeah.
I don't know if we talked about that last episode, but there's 2
No,
veteran safeties coming in. One I think
But-
out of
One of
Pittsburgh,
them
and
from
one
Jacksonville was actually a starter.
but,
yeah.
We
but
just
so
brought
was,
him in.
so was guy from Kansas City. No, he was from the Rams. What was his name? He went back to him.
John
JJ.
Johnson.
John Johnson. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I like
You know,
him.
he came in and he was garbage, and then we got Juan Thornhill and he was garbage. You know, who is the 45-year-old safety we got a few years back?
Oh
from
my gosh,
Minnesota?
Sendejo or something like that.
Sendejo,
Yeah.
I
Couldn't
forgot
cover
about him.
anybody. So
Yeah.
I don't really care about any of these free agent safeties we bring in because they all suck. Now, hopefully I'm wrong and these ones this year can pan out, but so
All right,
far.
game 3.
Well, they were
We're
talking.
already-
They
we're
were
already
talking
kicking
about
our
one of those
optimism.
guys. One
Huh?
of those guys. I think it was the guy that played in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he was the flashy guy because
or something like that. But they were talking about him playing in the box and potentially moving Delpit to free safety. I
Oh.
saw that in an article, so
That's
just
interesting.
something to maybe keep an eye on. I
that'd
know
be
we were
fun.
talking about maybe
Emerson.
the one
Emerson.
cornerback Emerson maybe moving to safety as well. That was a conversation between us.
Yeah.
But to
He's
see
got the size.
Delpit move back there, that's kind of a.
But we didn't
maybe
really
an interesting
address the
take.
cornerback room. So I'm guessing they're going to run with the 3 that we had. And
Or maybe one of our quarterbacks is going to go out there and play corner. Yeah, that's why we got so many quarterbacks.
well, you know what? We could have drafted one with the 2nd pick overall.
Anyway, so game 3. We're now one
Versus-
We're doing the schedule. The Packers. Listen,
Game 3,
you know,
Travis Hunter.
Is that the Jags?
No, I just wanted to
no,
throw
it's the
Travis Hunter in there.
Packers. Yeah, jeez.
Green Bay Packers
Uh,
game 3 loss.
It's at home.
It is at home.
That is a brutal division, the NFC North. I like of all the teams. We play the whole division, but I think we beat the Packers, and then later I think we beat the Bears too. I'm not a Jordan Love fan.
Yeah, that's another team that it seems second half of the season they seem to kick it up. But I think if you're going to play them, first half would be when I'd want to play them.
Yeah, so I think that's a. I'm optimistically thinking that's a W.
Michael?
I'm there too.
Oh, man.
Ha!
I'm 0-3.
Gotcha. Yes, you are.
You guys are 2-1.
You're going to be 0-17 by the time this is all done.
Yeah.
I'll get one in there.
Picking number 1 overall.
They'll
next
win
year.
one. They'll win one somewhere. I just haven't figured out where yet.
The bye
And
week.
Michael and I
At
Michael and
Detroit.
I are in cahoots.
Yeah,
That's
this is gonna be
a loss
unanimous.
for me.
Which one was it?
Yeah,
At Detroit.
Detroit.
Oh yeah. They play good from the start to the end.
Yeah.
They come out playing good. They end the season playing well. They change up stuff. They're
They
just a good
they
team.
bite kneecaps. You know,
Right.
They do.
I think is what
They do.
Yeah, I like
they
him.
bite kneecaps. Yeah.
Game 5 at home versus Minnesota. Let me go first.
Okay.
Myles Garrett feasts on rookie QBs.
Right. This guy's got 5 games under his belt.
This is my first win.
Okay. If JJ McCarthy is still the quarterback, it's a win.
Who is his quarterback if he's not?
Who'd they
I
get?
think
Was it Sam
they have a
Darnold?
No,
No.
Sam Darnold left. He's a
No, not Sam
That's
Darnold.
who it
No,
was.
sorry. Who they've signed somebody. No, now I got to figure that out. Hold on, hang on 1 second. Who did they sign?
Who's that line from Office Space? Michael Naga. Not gonna
Sam
work here
Howell?
anymore.
No, they didn't get anybody. Never mind. They have Max
Either-
Brosmer, Sam Howell, JJ McCarthy,
that's a
and
win.
Brett
Sam,
Rippon.
Sam
That's-
Howell. Sam
That's
Howell.
gotta
Yeah, but-
that's gotta be a win.
But yeah, so yeah.
But Brett Rippon, is that Mark Rippon's son?
I think so, actually.
Wow.
It's either that or a
I
nephew
didn't-
because there's another Rippin brother.
Cool.
But Sam Howell's a legitimate start. He played well when the rest of Washington was trash.
Yeah,
Oh,
You know,
I didn't
so-
realize that was who that was. Yeah.
Yeah. He's there's talent there. I mean,
but
he's
I
a
don't.
legitimate.
But I don't think they, unless they get those first 4 games, McCarthy is absolute dog doo doo.
I heard a take on
They're
that
not going
today
to start him.
where it was the same exact thing where this will be his 5th game of his career in the NFL, and it's against Myles Garrett, who that defense by game 5 should have life figured out. I would hope, and be all about pressuring rookie quarterbacks.
I really
Yeah.
will be interested to see though, because JJ McCarthy could not pass in college.
He's miserable.
I don't understand.
I mean, they put all their eggs in that basket.
and
they
they let Sam Darnold
Let
walk
Darnold go.
like crazy.
like they must see
that's
something
crazy.
in him that the rest of us haven't.
What's
but
our record right now?
Was that a win?
Yes,
Yeah,
Well, it was my first win, so
that's a
but
unanimous.
you were
win.
3-2.
3-2.
So
3-2
so
is
far,
pretty
my
much
vote
it.
has not mattered at all.
Well, if it's 2 against 1,
All right. So listen, speaking of feasting on rookie quarterbacks, Miles is either going to be feasting on Will Howard in Game 6 or
At Pittsburgh.
Mason Rudolph.
See,
This is
I still think that Aaron Rodgers. I think that's where he ends up. So I'm
But-
actually
but
calling
as-
that a loss.
but as of right now, he's not there, so you have to play it as is.
Does
So
that
do you think,
affect your
as this
decision?
roster sits right now? Because he could very well go sign with the Saints too. There has been a lot of talks about that in a dome.
I have a tough time divorcing myself from the fact that I know he's going to end up there. But if I have to go with one of
just
those
like he
two
knew
quarterbacks,
Travis Hunter was going to be on the Browns too. Too soon.
yes.
All right.
But if you're going to force me to go based on current roster, then yes, I think it's a win.
Okay.
Okay.
Before we move past the Steelers, though, I just want to bring up one point about the Vikings game. It's in London.
Yeah, that is
Ooh.
London. And it's the Vikings' second game in a week.
Second game in a
overseas.
row. Yeah, overseas. So they're in London 2 weeks in a row.
We're just getting
And
there.
we're the second game. We're just getting there. So
Yeah.
So they've
and-
made
and
it
as
up
the
to where
season-
that could be a game. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, that could play into it. Jet lag, playing overseas, different. It's like
Well,
a
and
9
they
a.m.
could
game
also
or something
be
like that.
sick of being there and ready to go home. And,
Yeah,
there's 2 ways to look at it.
Tired of people with
And-
accents.
Yeah.
As
Tired of water
as a-
with bubbles and no ice.
yeah. As a season ticket holder, though, that's a home game that we're not getting.
Yeah, that sucks.
No, they said they're providing plane tickets for you to go over and watch it in London.
They're
But you-
providing
you have to pay for it.
discounted tickets
Yeah.
for season ticket holders if you want to, travel overseas and
Yeah.
go through that whole shebang to see. At this point, with what we don't know about the Browns in 2025, there's no way that I would spend that money. But again, I digress.
No,
Yeah.
heck no.
Will I potentially be booking a November trip to Las Vegas to see the Browns play the Raiders? That is on the table.
Yeah.
Of course.
But London,
Get to
not
see
on the
Brock
table.
Bowers.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All
Sorry
right,
about
next
that
game.
little
Home
deviation.
against Miami. That's an L.
Oh boy.
All right. As the roster sits right now, Tua does not have a concussion.
Yes.
Um,
Wait. How many games are we in?
This is game
This is-
7.
Oh yeah, he's got a
This is game
concussion.
7. As the roster sits, Michael, right now.
I couldn't get Aaron Rodgers. You don't get concussions.
Tua plus concussion. That's right.
I don't like Tua without a concussion anyway, so I'm not afraid of Tua. It's just if he can throw the ball high enough in the air to where somebody can run under it, and then they get the ball, and then they're scary. But I'm not afraid of the Dolphins. But I still
Our
think we lose
defense
it.
is,
I just think we lose that game.
Yeah, I do too. Coming back from London, I think it's a trap game. I think they're a good team.
Hammering Rudolph with the helmet, and then we. All right. Yeah. All right. I'll go with a loss on that one too.
Hey, look, actually,
Your vote didn't count again.
So, all right. So at New England, I think that's a loss.
Okay.
Yeah, I say loss. We got freaking beat by them with a fourth string quarterback last year. Yeah, their defense is good. I've always been a fan of the guy. I'm not going to remember his name, but I can see his face, and he coached with us last year.
Oh, the coach. Oh my God.
The heck?
McDonald.
Mike Vrabel.
Mike
Vrabel.
No, I think
are we on to the Patriots already?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's
Miami. That was a loss.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's just a good coach. I think he's probably got a leg up on us too. Going into that game, after coach with us for a year, he knows we don't have a left tackle.
He does that. He was our offensive line coach.
I say loss.
Yeah.
I say win, but that's me.
Well, hey, my vote mattered first time.
All right. What'd you do? Give us a win?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I said loss.
All right. It's a loss.
Bye week, win or lose.
We've been known to lose them before.
Yeah.
All right, week 9 at the Jets.
That's got to be a win.
The Jets are just the
you
Jets
gotta
are
have that
just
Justin Fields.
they're
Justin
actually
Fields and
more
Garrett Wilson back together though.
They're more dysfunctional than Cleveland.
Yeah, their defense is a train wreck too.
So,
All right, I'll give you guys the win.
yep.
Home versus Baltimore.
Loss.
Loss. At the Raiders. That's an interesting one. I actually think that's a loss.
I'm hoping to be there, so I'm going to say it's a win.
I think Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, they got Geno Smith now, new coach, right? Coach?
Pete Carroll.
Yeah, that's right, Pete Carroll. Yeah, I think he's.
I'm on the fence because I agree. It's like one of those things where we could come out and, depending on how we're playing, we could be playing lights out football, but the run, we struggle so hard, and if that guy's going to come out there and be what he's been, I'm going to have to go loss.
Okay.
I think that's the realistic one. I mean, the optimistic side of me wants to say win, but I feel like that's a loss.
Yeah. Coming back home versus the 49ers. They're an interesting team. I don't know what to make of them this year.
They're spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
They've re-signed the linebacker today on to a record linebacker contract. Yeah, Fred Warner.
Locked Purdy up.
Brock Purdy's locked up on a huge contract for him. Good for him.
But he's got CMC back, but he doesn't have Debo.
And currently Brandon Ayuk is there, and I don't know how long term that is, but he's there. So I think that's a loss.
Yeah, I did too.
Okay.
Unless we run into another scenario like we did last year, or 2 years ago, where all their starters were out. That's the only way. Their defense is too good.
Yeah. The following week, home against Tennessee. I actually think that's a win.
Yeah, we better win that one.
At Chicago, I think they have so many offensive weapons, and I don't like Caleb, but I think he'll be better. And they have a good defense, so I think.
Who they just bring in for their head coach this year? Well, one of the guys from Detroit, wasn't it?
Oh, really? I must have missed that or not remember that. Hold on.
Because Aaron Glenn went to the Jets, right?
Yeah. Yep.
They just brought in somebody that I thought was going to be a good matchup for him.
Well, I hate the Bears, and I think, along with Green Bay, those are the two teams in the NFC North. I think we're going to manhandle. So
I'll tell you in a minute.
I say that's a win.
I was hoping I could get on that page, but I can't. Ben Johnson.
Yeah, so he's. I think it's a win too. I think that Caleb Williams is a head case, and I think if we can throw Myles Garrett at him from different positions, that we're gonna ruin his day.
Okay.
They do have a lot of talent, but they had a lot of talent last year too, and it didn't mean anything. He was real easy to frazzle.
True.
Yeah,
Home versus Buffalo.
Loss.
that's a loss.
Do we want to take an over/under on what the point spread is on that one?
No, too many. Home versus Pittsburgh.
I hate Pittsburgh. Win.
As the
rationale.
roster currently sits, that's a win.
All right. Last game, home versus Cincinnati. That's a loss.
It's at Cincinnati.
That's what I said.
Yeah, at Cincinnati. Yeah, I'll say we split with Cincinnati.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll give them the
So
divisional split too.
All
Give it to
right.
them.
There is the record at 8-9. We do not make the playoffs, and we do not get a top 10 pick. Probably.
But Jacksonville
Probably.
went 1-16, if you can believe it, and we get the first overall pick next year. So
No, we traded it for a punter.
And Tom
actually,
Brady.
Jacksonville's schedule is. I mean, I think ours is a little bit tougher, but they do not have a cake schedule at all. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So, if Trevor Lawrence struggles, if Travis Hunter can't play every position on both sides, including special teams, they're going to struggle.
I think 8-9 is a very realistic based off of what we saw last year. That's a big step up. There's always the saying of there's always going to be a game you have no business winning that you win, and there's always a
Right.
game that you should have never lost that you lose.
Yeah.
And momentum plays a lot. I mean, when you get a guy like Joe Flacco when he came in, he got the momentum going. These guys were playing in a good rhythm and stuff. So we could go on a big winning streak, and he could also hurt his leg, and we could go on a huge losing streak too. So, I mean, I think 8-9 is pretty realistic right now.
I think the Tennessee game is the one that if it would be the game that we should win that we won't. If I had to pick one.
So,
That's
Andrew,
the
you
game.
probably had at least 3 games that Michael and I outvoted you for wins.
Which will probably be
My
losses.
wins I had as Minnesota, Tennessee, and Pittsburgh at home.
So you have
Okay.
us at 3-14.
Yep.
Yeah,
New
God, I hope
York,
you're
I
better than
can
that.
see, but quarterbacks reuniting with college receivers, I think can be a dangerous combo that can help lift a team. Joe
Yeah.
Burrow and Jamar Chase. So
Yeah.
I think Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson reuniting could lift them both up, which could change the culture of the team. I do.
I don't disagree. I mean, it could be crazy, but I know they brought in a new head coach this year, and I think that could also, be a lot of learning, trying to figure out who's who and what's what. But
Yeah.
I think that'll be a fun one to watch. I hope they figure it out eventually after we're done playing them. But
We'll see. I hope. But would you rather be 8-9 or 3-14?
I mean, obviously 8-9 because I want to root for my team and have 8 wins. But I get
Yeah.
what you're saying with the picks.
Yeah.
I'd rather be, at the end of the season when the draft comes around,
Neither
I'd rather
one of
have
them-
3 wins.
Neither one of them gets you in the playoffs.
No, I'm just saying I don't want to be another 3 win. Oh God,
I know.
please,
That's
please
peak
no.
torture. Having
Yeah,
to
no, we
convince
don't want that.
ourselves.
I can't tell what's worse, knowing that you're going to suck and sucking, or having a spurt where we were like untouchable on defense and good, and then back to sucking again. Like
Mhm.
we had some ground that we were standing on. Like it was fun.
Don't give me hope.
Right.
If you're gonna suck, just suck. Don't give me hope.
No mental toughness.
We'll as soon as the season's over, we'll enter back into. There's always next year, and we'll find all the silver linings. But during the season, don't give me hope. unless you're going to do something with it.
Just punch him in
Don't
the
go
mouth.
60. Don't go 64-18 and then flop in the second round of the
Right.
playoffs. Is that what
Please
Right.
don't. That's the worst. And then go through what we're going to have to go through this off season.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not pretty if we're going to try to do anything to upgrade our roster.
Yeah.
Although, am I segueing? Or are we not ready to segue?
Oh, I'm ready. Ready.
That was a good
We're-
segue, I thought. I led you
we
right
are-
into that.
We
Well,
are lacking mental toughness for the Browns right now, which you could
Yeah.
also say the Cavs lost all their mental toughness, all their physical toughness, all of their everything.
Well-
And now we're stuck with that, like you said in our last podcast, probably for the next 3 years, unless we can find a way to magically make
Yeah.
the numbers work to pull off some trade or shoot everybody in the
Well-
arm with something. So,
Well, I'm going to go into. Hopefully, I won't be too long winded. Stop me if I get too boring in details. But
Here's
you guys
how-
want to
how we're
start
gonna
it
play
off
this
on
out, right?
what we're discussing and things like that. No, no,
It's
we don't want
That's
that.
a whole lot of Drew.
and take over, Drew. Run the numbers.
Just see my towel.
Nice.
Did you read it?
Should we?
That's too far away.
Oh yeah, no, it ain't happening. Just read it. Read it. Pretend like I'm really smart.
It says if I die choking on a gummy bear, tell everybody. What is that? Tell everybody I was killed by a bear and say no more.
That's funny.
Nice.
So,
All right,
Drew,
so-
our tall basketball guru, what is the mess we've got ourselves into, and how do we get out of it?
So, there's been a lot of rumors of, Cavs and Giannis, and giving this hope, and a lot of those types of trades in the offseason. And as time goes, we can look at what might be more realistic. But and I'm by no means a capologist, but I'm trying to learn more about the NBA cap and how it works. So there's actually 4 things when it comes to the NBA. There's kind of 4 levels. There's obviously the salary cap, which I think I have the numbers from last year. It was like 140, I think, was last year. They're estimating a 10% jump. So the salary cap is expected to be, it's not official yet, $154.6 million. Okay. This year. Yeah. The luxury tax line. So that's the second threshold. So you can go over the 154, but then the luxury tax line is at 187. Again, these are estimated $187.9 million, right? So then that's always kind of been a thing in the NBA. Back when LeBron was here and we were going to the finals every year, the discussion was, is Dan Gilbert going to be willing to pay the luxury tax, right? Mm-hmm. He always did, because we were in the finals. So that's that luxury tax. What they've done with the new CBA is they've put in these aprons, and those are above the luxury tax line. So there's the first apron, and then there's the second apron. The first apron is estimated to be 195.9. Okay, 195.9 million. The second apron is estimated to be $207.8 million. Okay, I'll talk about those in a minute. To give you an idea, so that's $207.8 million. The Cavs right now are slated to have they have a salary commitment of $210,534,208 of committed money for 25-26, which means they're already $3 million above the second apron, still needing to sign 4 guys. Okay. So that's where we're at. We're already over the second apron. I think there's 2 other teams. There's Phoenix and Boston. And Boston's probably going to break up too because of this, because they also have a $600 million luxury tax bill on top of the restrictions from the apron. So what are the apron? What do these do? And then we'll kind of talk about how it plays into like some of these Giannis trades. Okay. So I'll just break down the aprons, and then there's another caveat that's where I think there's at least some potential. So if you are in the first apron, so that's over that between that $195 and $207 million, you get no biannual exception. And these are ways that you can sign free agents, right? You get no non-taxpayer mid-level exemption. No, you can't. So you can't acquire a player via sign and trade. Okay. You cannot claim a player off waivers. So, during after the trade deadline, when all those vets get bought out, okay,
Yeah.
if you're in the first apron, you can't sign any of those players. Okay. So nobody in that pool.
So that
can
kind of
you
lowers
sign.
the value of them a little bit too, then, because there's not as many people that can kind of dip into that bucket and grab out of it.
No, it's just, but you have to remember right now there's only 3 teams in the second apron. Now I know I'm
Mhm.
talking about the first apron, but there are teams that could easily get under that first apron if they need
I
to.
see.
I won't say easily, but could. Okay. And I'm gonna read you. I think I actually printed off the list of where teams are at, so you'll have an idea. So, and then there's no expanded traded player exception, so you can't get a trade exception in a trade. And so the other thing, and this is part of what I'm trying to figure out. So the NBA calendar ends June 30th. So right now they're operating off the 24-25 budget.
Okay.
These are 25-26 guidelines because nobody technically has been in the second apron
Right.
that I know of because it's just starting to go into play. Okay. So, so basically what the first apron does is it limits your ability to acquire players. Okay. It is largely what it does.
Okay.
It's punitive with the luxury tax because you're over the luxury tax, but basically you can re-sign your own players, you can ship players out, but it just doesn't give you all the money that's kind of built in to acquire players. Okay. So not handicapping, but doable for some teams. Okay. This year, I believe the first apron, I want to say was 178 million. The Cavs salary was at 172. So they didn't even hit the first apron this year. Okay. They were in the luxury tax, but they did not hit the first apron. So if you hit that second apron, which we're currently in, still needing to sign 4 players, right? So you cannot, and this is the big one, you cannot aggregate salaries in any trade. What that means is you cannot combine 2-3 salaries to go get one player. Okay, and that's where it comes into play with Giannis, and we'll get back to there. That's the big one in the second apron is you can't combine salaries in any trade. You can't pay cash to match salaries in a trade. So a lot of times what happens is during draft time, we've done it a lot. You pay cash to buy a second round pick. Right?
Okay.
You can no longer do that. You can't use cash to buy a pick.
So they're saying basically if one guy equals 50 million, you can't send 2 $25 million guys to equal his 50 million.
Correct. So, and the other thing with this that applies to both of those is you can't take back more in a trade than what you're sending out.
So let me pause this for a second. What is the point of that though? Are they just trying to eliminate the good from getting gooder?
No, they're basically the owner, and this was the owner's decision. Basically, the owners got together, and I'll tell you what my actual theory is the owners got together and they wanted to kind of give everybody a fighting chance. So it kept the Dan Gilberts who were willing to pay whatever tax money he had to pay.
That's kind of what I was saying. So it's making it equal for everybody, basically.
Right.
You know, like I can't trade one guy away to go get LeBron or 3 guys to go get LeBron James. I have to have a guy on my roster that is LeBron James money in order to make that swap. So therefore, I'm not pulling in an amazing player and getting rid of some mediocre talent. I'm pulling, to add to my, make my team better. I'm having to get rid of a great guy to bring a great guy in, basically.
Correct.
Essentially, money wise.
No, absolutely. And then the other side of that, and this is what I think it really was, is I think for owners, It was probably a way for them to manage salaries while blaming it on the CBA. Because now I don't have to, somebody comes and wants a max. I can't pay a max contract because that puts us in the second apron, but I'll pay you this.
But we created this rule, but the darn NBA screwed it up for you.
Right. So
But
that's
we all had a meeting
honestly,
with
in my
this
opinion, that's probably what happened, but that's just me surmising. So for going back to the second apron. So when you're in the second apron, no taxpayer mid-level exemption. So now you lose the only other free money to go get a free agent. So you really have no way to get a free agent.
Okay.
You can sign your own players, okay, but you have no way to go get a free agent. Now you're also limited in how much you can give your own free agents. Like I think with Ty Jerome, the max they can offer him is $14 million, I believe. Okay.
But anybody can pay him whatever they want?
Well,
Or is that the limit for him?
because there's other teams in the first and second apron, so they might be limited. They could potentially be limited too.
Okay.
Really, the only team that could offer him, whatever they wanted is teams under the salary cap, and there's very few of those.
Right.
So now this is the next part that's really interesting. When you're in the second apron, and this also plays into those rumored trades for Giannis. So draft picks, if you're in the second apron, so by the end of now, this is where I'm not sure the calendar year. So 24-25 is ending. So if you're in the second apron, I believe the way it works, if you're in the second apron by the end of June, which we would not be, because ours doesn't kick in till the July 1st NBA new season. Okay. But then what happens is your 2032 first round pick gets frozen and you can't use it in a trade.
Mm.
And think about this.
They're ruining
So
basketball for me.
Huh?
This is ruining basketball for me.
I told you, it's a lot. It's very nerdy. It's very interesting.
I love the superstar teams. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to
I
go
know,
back to
but
like mediocre.
they've this year it'll be the
who really is not
different-
scared about any of this? Oklahoma.
Well, no, they're gonna have to address this in a couple years because Chet
But they're not
Holmgren
afraid of it this
and-
year. Is what I'm saying. Like,
No,
they've got
this year,
so much
next year,
young
they're not.
talent and no
Yeah.
money hardly wrapped up in anybody.
Yeah. No, they're fine.
And a million draft picks. They've got
Right.
a million draft
They
picks.
got like 12 first round picks in the next 5 drafts.
So they can let one
yeah.
slip
Yeah,
off,
they're,
and as they
they're,
had
they're
another
sitting
one.
pretty. So what would happen is, in theory, for us, I believe,
Mhm.
25. If we stay in the second apron, 25-26. By the end of 26, our 2033 first round pick would be frozen. Okay. Now you can only trade your draft picks 7 years out. So that would be the last pick we could trade. So I'm gonna I'll go. Don't let me forget that part.
Sorry, my son just walked out of the house with a fire extinguisher. I'm just wondering if I should be alarmed
Oh.
by that or not. Or
That's normal.
But I was gonna say, your house isn't that
Good?
normal?
Totally normal, dude.
good. Oh, you got an engine to start. He said, "Okay, great."
Oh.
Anyways,
So I'll get back to how that could impact a potential trade. So what happens is, though, what they do is when you hit that second apron and that draft pick gets frozen,
Uh-huh.
okay, they look at the next 5 years. If only 2 of those 5 years you are over the second apron, you'll get that draft pick back. But it's frozen for 5 years.
As
But
far
if-
as trading that away as an asset,
Mhm.
it's frozen.
Correct. But if you are in the second apron for 3 or more of those 5 years, that draft pick becomes the last pick in the first round, regardless of where you end up that year.
oh, so
It
I
ends up-
see.
So it ends up. So you keep the pick.
'Cause
You
there's
can't
been a-
trade it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of teams that like had winning records the year before that ended
Mhm.
up with somebody else's pick, and they're in the lottery.
Mhm.
That no longer happens. Is what you're
No,
saying,
it would be the last pick in the draft.
right?
So, but but a lot of the teams, and that's where it becomes really punitive in the long run. A lot of the teams that would be in the second apron now, at some point, are going to have to rebuild. So you have to decide when to do that, because otherwise, that pick, that could be your rebuild, where now you
Yeah.
could have got a lottery pick and now it's the 30th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
So That's one of the really punitive things.
That's a lot less paperwork on the NBA's part, having to keep track
Yeah.
of whose pick belongs to who.
Now,
Trying to slow that down a little bit.
here's the other part with the first and the second apron. Okay. So all those things I just listed, right? All of the things, the restricted transactions. So, anything that I listed, I'm not going to go back through them all, but if you do any of those restricted transactions, okay, and during the year, then you're hard locked under that apron for that year. Okay. So again, I'll come back to we'll go back to the Giannis trade. Keep that in mind for the Giannis trade. Okay. But you're hard capped. So if you do one of those transactions, okay, and say you get under the second apron, then you're hard capped at the second apron. So even if you have to fill out your roster, you can't go above that amount. That amount. And you have to remember, you can only sign vet minimums and your own players.
Right.
So the pool you're picking from is very small. And you can't sign your own players and go over the hard cap. So it becomes very, very tricky when it comes to somebody like Ty Jerome. So go ahead.
I just gonna say, is it in other sports, specifically football, you've seen guys like Tom Brady who have renegotiated, and we've seen other guys renegotiate their contracts team friendly, so that the rest of the team could be built. Is that
basketball has
doable?
Buyouts? They don't have restructure.
Gotcha.
So you could buy somebody out.
But then Carlos Boozer.
But as far as I know, even if you buy them out for that year, the cap hit is a cap hit. It's just the future year contracts, I believe.
Okay.
That you.
So there's no going to Donovan Mitchell and saying, "Hey,
Nope.
and you can't. There's no signing bonus that doesn't count against the cap. There's no.
So what this looks like to me is for the next several years anyways, it's going to get real boring in the off seasons for a lot of teams until they get all their, it's going to take years for these teams to get these contracts all situated to where I feel like what they're doing is it's going to be less money that's coming out of the pockets of these organizations, and it's going to kind of, even it all out, but it'll take probably 3, 4, 5 years to get them all.
So
where we're all on the same playing field again.
So the other thing that goes into play with these when you're accounting for the money is every potential bonus is accounted for. Okay. So like if somebody signs a contract and it's like, we'll use the Joe Flacco one because he signed for $4 million, but he's got like $9 million worth of incentives. Towards this, $13 million would be counted.
That's crazy.
Even if he never achieves that $9 million worth of incentives, it all counts.
And even if you release it, it still is a cap hit.
It's not really releasing in basketball, but they're waiving.
If he doesn't achieve the bonus at the end of the year, and we didn't get, let's say that we were in the second apron with all the bonuses accounted for. If none of those bonuses actually hit and it knocks us back down, doesn't matter.
They all count, even if they're never achieved. Yep. It's
I don't like this.
I know. That's what I'm telling you. It's tough.
So can we waive a player that's like let's just use Ty Jerome right now.
He's a free
off
agent.
The roster. All right.
He's a free agent.
So that does that put us?
No, because his contract's not counting on that 210 because he's a free agent. The only players that are counting
without him.
Right. The only players right now that we have under contract for next year: Darius, Donovan, DeAndre, Jarrett, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, Jalen Tyson, Craig Porter. Believe it or not, Ricky Rubio is still on the books for $424,000. But that counts towards the cap. But that was 10 players. Now, there's also we got one two-way contract, but he's like the 15th player. So we got 4 guys we have to sign. But here's the other thing that's not accounted for in that 210. The moment that Evan Mobley won Defensive Player of the Year,
right?
Okay, that Now he kicked in at, I believe it's a 10% kicker into his contract. That's not in the 210 either. So we actually have more than that. We've got to deduct. So I'll hurry up here. I know we're running out of time. So the teams, I won't even worry about the teams because we're just worried about the Cavs. So when it comes into play for somebody like, one other thing real quick, how you finish the trade, okay, dictates the type of trade it falls under. So we're over the second apron. If we do a trade that finishes us under the first apron, we abide by the first apron guidelines.
Okay.
Okay. If we're under the second apron and we do something that's allowed in the first apron, but takes us into the second apron, we have to abide by the second apron guidelines, which is a 1-for-1. So where that comes into play with somebody like Giannis is you cannot do a Darius Garland and a Jared Allen because you're in the second apron. You can only do a 1-for-1. He makes.
We're in the second apron to start.
To start. Yep. So you can't do that. What you could do is you could attach Isaac Okoro and Dean Wade if you could find a third team to take them, because that would get you under the second apron. Now you can aggregate salaries, right? Okay.
And I've heard that's a possibility is the Cavs are trying to shave some of that money off before that hits in so that they could be under that.
But there's two caveats. Once you do that, now you're hard capped to the second apron with very little room.
Yeah.
Right? And not having signed Ty Jerome. You wouldn't have room to sign Ty Jerome. You might have room to sign a few vet minimums. You're also losing Sam Merrill because he's a free agent.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have money to sign Ty Jerome right now.
No, we do. We do because he's our player. We have about $14 million that we can sign him.
But that would put us up to 224?
Right, but he's our own player. So we're already in the second apron, so we could sign him if nobody else offers him more. But then we wouldn't be able to sign Sam Merrill because we use the one thing we have.
Definitely wouldn't be able to trade for Giannis.
Right. But here, go ahead.
And then signing 4 more players.
Mm-hmm.
Did we have any draft picks in this?
We don't have a first round pick because that's the Donovan trade that's going to Utah. Actually, I think it's going to Phoenix via Utah, but yeah, we know so when it comes to our draft picks this year, so one of the other rules, and I'm trying to hustle. One of the rules is you can't trade consecutive first round picks. Mm-hmm. So what we did in this trade is this year's first round pick was traded, next year's was swapped. The following year's was traded, the next year's was swapped, the following year's was traded. So 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Okay? Which means 30 we can't trade. We can only swap. 31 is the next one we can trade. Right?
Sheesh.
Mm-hmm.
32 we can't. 33 will be frozen. So we only have one first round pick to offer.
That's stupid.
But I was saying, do we have draft picks for this current draft that we can fill out a roster and draft picks?
We have a second round pick. Yeah, we have a second round pick. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have a second. So that's where the Giannis, you'd have to find somebody to take Dean Wade, which he's $6 million on an expiring contract. That's probably doable somewhere.
Yeah, he's a big body. Somebody'd like to put him in somewhere.
But you'd have to find somebody to take Isaac Okoro's $11 million contract.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then you'd have to have Milwaukee be convinced they wanted Jared Allen and Darius Garland and only one first round pick for Giannis, which then hard caps you and really makes it difficult to even round out your roster with vet minimums.
Right.
That's what the Giannis trade looks like. It's not pretty.
Not pretty, probably not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. Now, there are other picks, and we can talk about these. There are other trade ideas that I think are interesting and intriguing. Houston being a team that potentially has some assets that could be tradable and something viable for us. But the only thing I was going to leave you guys with, I told you guys this earlier. What about a Donovan Mitchell for Giannis? trade.
I mean, I like the thought of Giannis and Donovan Mitchell together.
I know,
I don't know if
but I'm just saying.
Yeah, that would be preferential, but Giannis is the knock on Donovan Mitchell is that he's 6'2", and
right. So you bring in
and
6'10".
of
What
play
is Giannis, 6'10"?
Mhm.
So you bring in that style of play at 6'10".
and you have Garland.
They're only a couple years apart in age.
Mhm.
And then you do something with Jared Allen, and you've got Garland, Mobley, Hunter. Think about that front line: Hunter, Giannis, and Mobley.
Yeah, that's scary.
Do we get
Garland's a good ball
Hunter,
player.
the Hunter that performed in the regular season for the other team, or do we
Yeah.
get the Hunter that we got?
Well, I don't know, but Giannis brings a whole different mentality
Yeah.
that may rub off on some of those guys.
Yeah.
Just saying. I think there
I'd
are
love
some
to
things
have
that are much more doable that way. Now, I don't know that Milwaukee would do it because you got Damian Lillard and your backcourt's Damian Lillard and Donovan Mitchell.
Jeez. Scary too, though.
Yeah, but small. So I just thought about that today, that I'm not actually opposed to that being an option. So,
Yeah.
so
I
but
think-
all that to say, I know that was, go ahead, Mike, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I from where I stood, this changes the game for everything, because guys like the Cavs, we haven't relied on a draft pick to come in to be anything in years.
Mhm.
Those, I mean, yeah, Mobley, but like usually those draft picks are what we trade to go get the Donovan Mitchells. That's what we get to go get these other players. And with it being set up the way that it is, and the cap being the way that it is, your GMs now become one of the most important pieces of your team, because you've got to be able to draft players now. You have to be able
Oklahoma
to build
City.
this the way that it's supposed to be. You got to go and draft players. You got to sign them for the right amount of money. You got to be able to lock them up the right way, because you could be like the Cavs, where you're 2 or 3 pieces away from being like legit balls to the wall championship contenders, and we can't do anything.
No.
Unless we lose some good chips. It used to be, we'll package up. Okay, we'll give you 2046 first round pick. That changes
I think
the whole flow of everything.
your best trade asset is Jared Allen.
Yeah.
Because
He should be an easy one to move, but I would hate to see him go.
Because he's got a reasonable contract. You'd have to find, what you needed in return and see if the other team, you could work a deal.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, you're looking at maybe getting Ty Jerome, although he changed his picture on his Instagram from him in a Cavs jersey to him with a bag on his shoulder looking like he's walking on a tarmac.
He probably read all the stuff. He probably watched our podcast before we put it out.
So he may not be wanting to come back, but you're probably going to
I bet he wants to come back. I bet he's looking at the thing saying there's no real logistic way for me to come back.
But we can give him 14. We can give him 14. And will somebody else offer him more?
But he's probably looking at it too for the same perspective of re-signing Jerome does not fix all the problems we had.
No, it doesn't.
We have to go out and get a heartbeat somewhere and some type of a big asset that's going to bring the punch, and it's not going to be there if you.
Well, but that's the thing, though. You could trade Jared Allen for a piece or two and still sign Ty Jerome.
Yeah,
because he's our player,
right?
Because he's our player, and you're already over the second apron, so you're not hard capping yourself,
right?
And that $14 million, even if we traded somebody, like you just mentioned, that $14 million is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Trading somebody and picking up 2 more assets doesn't increase the amount of money that we would have for Ty Jerome, right?
Right.
Okay. So he knows that $14 million from the Cavs is what he's potentially could get, and there's a likelihood the way that he played, other than the couple games in the playoff this last series against the Pacers.
That was the first time too. I wanted to give him a break on that.
He's probably worth more than $14 million.
If you're looking at signing somebody, he's the best piece you got.
Yeah.
No,
he would work a miracle. In all honesty, if he wasn't your free agent and you saw him floating around on the market, that'd be the guy you'd be going after, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't know what he just did in the playoffs for us, I mean, you'd be after him.
I do think there's potentially a market. I'd have to look and see of Darius Garland packaging him with our 2031 first round pick and bringing back somebody else. I'd have to see who.
Damian Lillard. Just kidding.
He's too old.
I'm kidding.
I don't want him. But that's the other piece. Could you send Jared Allen for a piece or two, and Darius Garland in a first for another stud?
Is
I
there
don't
a
know.
chance we get any of these draft? I mean, could we get rid of some assets and get draft picks back? Man, I understand what we're doing, and I feel like the management thinks we're close, and but I can't imagine
You're a
not
lot
having,
further away now than you were with this new.
Yeah,
What you're saying there's no
Yeah.
draft picks. What do you do? Like
that's why I
sign
don't
a
be
bunch of league
surprised.
minimum guys.
Boston's gonna have a fire sale.
Yeah,
Derek White, who's probably the third best player, they're probably gonna have to get rid of him
that's
for
crazy.
this
I mean,
very
Tate-
reason.
Now, what about and not to extend this conversation, but Tatum being injured and probably out all of next year with an injury?
Mhm.
How does his salary play into?
Yeah,
this
it all
apron.
counts.
Okay, so if they're going to keep Tatum, his big salary counts,
Mhm.
and nobody's
But
going to want
they
a guy
might-
with an Achilles.
So they were a second apron team at the end of this year. So
Yeah.
their what is it? It's 4 or 5 years window of looking starts this year.
That's crazy.
So
So
they're
they
already
may be
one.
looking to get under the second apron right now to avoid that window
right?
and getting that first round pick frozen.
I mean, how crazy would it be? Would somebody trade for a Jason Tatum injured?
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
To knowing that he's not going to be 25, 26, he's not
Mhm.
coming. He's not going to be part of the team,
That's
Absolutely.
crazy.
and have that
But
money.
again-
I mean, how much? $50 million you'd have
But
tied up,
again,
right?
who can absorb him and give Boston what they'd want in assets? You'd have to fight. You'd have to, again, it takes more research, but is
Right,
it out
Oklahoma.
there potentially? Yeah, Oklahoma could. San Antonio probably could. Houston probably could. Teams that are really young, have draft assets, but have promise. They could probably come up with something.
And do the draft picks have dollar values assigned to them?
No.
When we're okay, so when you're trading,
Mhm.
like Oklahoma City would be trading 2 first-round picks or something like that. There's money. There's no money attached to that
Mm-mm.
at this point.
No.
Okay.
No, but the team with the most salary cap right now, going into what is that? Why is that tweaking out? Is Brooklyn right now has $53 million of committed money.
Wow.
Keep it.
So you could trade anybody into them right now, and they could absorb it. Just straight up, you could give them Darius Garland for free if you wanted. I'm not saying we do.
They're
Just
Now they got to
they're
sign a
not
bunch of
space.
guys, but right now they have $53 million of committed money.
and we have 210.
Seems
Correct.
about right.
Usually Cleveland's not on the upper end of spending in sports.
Dan Gilbert
No,
always has
Berkeley.
been.
And now it bites you in the butt.
Dolan not so much.
No, Dolan not so much. No, but Dan Gilbert, since
Haslam's done a
LeBron came
pretty good
back,
job.
has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It has them spend the money. So,
So-
I do like that part of
we that part of them is good owners, but upgrading, making a big splash via trade in free agency for the Cavs is more than just difficult.
Yeah.
It would
It
take.
doesn't make sense.
It literally is Dumb and Dumber, 1 in a million. So you're saying there's a chance.
Right.
That's what we're looking at. Is it possible? Yes,
Sure.
but so is
going-
the fact that I walk upstairs and catch gravity to the moon. It's possible,
60% of the time. It works
Every
100% of the time.
right? Like, it's not likely to happen. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to surmise. It's fun to, dream, but reality is
Yeah.
going to set in eventually that something like that is probably not going to happen.
Right.
That's
Not
crazy.
to mention teams like Oklahoma City, Houston, San Antonio, those teams can offer a whole lot more than we can.
That was a good breakdown, Drew.
Yeah, that's a lot of information, but that's a big rule.
That's what I said.
It's changed.
I
this
told
year,
you
so
coming into it's, if you want to put up, a graphic with some of the numbers or some of the stuff, you can do that just to make it easier to digest. But that's, the CBA is a
I don't know if they
400-page
make a graphic
document
with
for a
that
reason.
many spaces for words. That was a lot of numbers.
You
Yes.
extrapolated that very well.
Nicely played.
Thanks.
Yeah, we unfortunately have to wrap this up here, but I'm actually glad that we did that part there. I know that's a lot of number talk and all that kind of stuff, but that helps break it down and put into perspective that we're going to see a much different NBA over the next 5
Mhm.
years.
Very much different.
much. Like we're not going to see Kevin Durant's hopping from one team to another team to make superstar teams. It's just not going to happen. But I'm glad that was broke down, and I hope that leaves some room somewhere for us to make some type of difference so that we can continue to be a good winning organization, because that's what we hang our hat on now is the Cavs. And that would suck for it to be a financial thing.
Yeah,
So.
we need to make a move, but it's easier said than done.
Right.
Not just a move into the weight room to get a little bigger,
Well,
stronger.
that might be the move we make. Just
Little injection of steroids into the arm to make you a little more testosterone. Get a
bury
little more
everybody
angry.
into the weight room for winter or
little
something.
Hans and Franz.
Yeah.
But
It'll pump you up.
Lots of good info. Like
Sir.
the new feel of this. It's kind of fun. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it works. And I would say for tonight, we're going to call it a night. And I'm going to say peace out. Check you later.
Sayonara, everyone.
Till next
Stay
time.
frosty.
Ooh, I like Frosties.
It's a little late for one of those, but why not?
Yeah.
Till next
Talk
time,
about late.
everybody. We are 3 and out.
Out.
Thank you for joining us on 3 and Out. Be on the lookout for more episodes.